on, man. Don't do this to me. Don't ruin my life.
I'm not ruining your life.
No, you're on the cusp.
These were the words of 29-year-old Christy Floods when the detective accused her of unaliving a 2-year-old girl. She was concerned about getting a bad rep.
A parent's nightmare, a community now filled with grief and heartache. Sandy Springs police charging a babysitter with killing a toddler.
At 11:30, a babysitter in Sandy Springs is now charged with murder in the death of a 2-year-old girl. Police say it appears the little girl suffered severe injuries while under the care of 29-year-old Christy Flood.
Little Fallon had no chance at a happy life. Most of her life, 2 short years, were filled with pain and fear at the hands of 2 people her parents trusted with her life. What Christy Floods and Jeffrey Myers did to her is so depraved. It will have you guys in tears. And what they Googled after taking her life proves there aren't many people worse than these 2. This is the full and tragic story of Fallon Lynn Fridley. On December 9th, 2020, a short phone call shattered the world of Kristen Fridley Gant. It was around 9:20 p.m. when Kristen's phone rang, displaying the name of her trusted friend and babysitter, Christy Flood. Kristen's heart raced as she answered, only to hear Christy's hysterical voice on the other end. "Kristen, you need to come to my house right away. I don't know what happened." Fallon hit her head on a slide. She is not responsive.
And she mumbled out, "I don't know," she hit her head on the slide. So Cameron and I rushed to the hospital.
Panic gripped Kristen as she and her husband, Cameron Gant, rushed to Christy's apartment. By the time they arrived, paramedics were already on the scene working frantically to revive their precious 2-year-old daughter, Fallon. The little girl was quickly transported to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta's Scottish Rite Hospital. At the hospital, Kristen and Cameron faced every parent's worst nightmare. They were ushered into a small, private room, the kind no one ever wants to find themselves in. For what felt like hours, they waited, clinging to hope as doctors fought to save their daughter's life. Finally, a doctor entered the room. He explained that Fallon had suffered severe injuries, including a fractured skull and internal bleeding. As the doctor spoke, the horrifying truth began to dawn on Kristen and Cameron. Their beloved daughter had been brutally to death.
The call I came on her walkie-talkie radio saying code blue in room 53. There's about 20 people in there. They're taking turns on top of her, doing CPR. I dropped to my knees and I'm begging God, take me, it's not fair.
At 1:18 a.m. on December 10th, 2020, Fallon Lynn Fridley was pronounced dead. Kristen, overcome with grief, held her daughter's lifeless body, feeling the swelling on the back of her head. In that moment, the world as she knew it shattered completely.
December 10th, 2020 at 1:18. They let me hold her, and I could just feel the back of her head, how swollen it was, and her body was purple. She didn't look like my Fallon.
She could only wonder, why? Why had one of her closest friends ended her baby's life?
Hey. Hey, dear. You're a sweetheart. Yeah.
Fallon Lynn Fridley was born on September 27, 2018 in Hollywood, Florida. She came into the world via emergency C-section weighing 7 pounds 3 ounces. Kristen, then 25 years old, had endured a difficult pregnancy and labor, facing the challenges alone as Fallon's biological father was not in the picture. From the moment she was born, Fallon was a ray of sunshine. She had blonde hair, bright blue eyes, chubby cheeks, and seemed to be always smiling. As she grew, Fallon developed into an outgoing, vivacious toddler who loved to sing, dance, and talk to anyone who would listen. Kristen, a devoted mother, worked as a veterinarian technician at Fur Kids Animal Rescue and Shelters, Georgia's largest no-kill animal shelter. Her love for animals was something she shared with Fallon. In October of 2020, Kristen married Cameron Gant, who, though not Fallon's biological father, loved the little girl as his own. Fallon affectionately called him Daddy, and the three formed a tight-knit, loving family unit.
Bye. Fallon was so beautiful. She was the happiest, sweetest child.
The suspect has been friends with the Fridley family for years, and there was no indication the little girl was being abused.
How do you overcome such tragedy
and especially at the hands of someone that you knew and you trusted.
Kristen had known Christy Flood for about 5 years at the time of Fallon's death. Christy, a 29-year-old mother of 2, seemed to be a loving and attentive parent to her own children, 3-year-old Harper and an infant son.
Kirsty started watching Fallon in August of 2020 when Fallon's daycare permanently closed due to COVID. Her daughter was 3 years old. It was a great setup.
When Fallon's daycare closed in August 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Kristen found herself in need of childcare. Christy, who was already a stay-at-home mom, offered to watch Fallon. It seemed like the perfect solution. Fallon and Harper were already best friends, often playing together and even going trick-or-treating as a duo. Kristen trusted Christy implicitly, believing her friend treated Fallon as one of her own. Kristen would drop off Fallon at Christy's apartment in the Edgewater at Sandy Springs complex before heading to work. Fallon always seemed happy and well cared for, sometimes not even wanting to leave when it was time to go home. Christy's boyfriend, Jeff Myers, also lived in the complex. While he wasn't typically involved in the childcare, he was often present in the evenings when Kristen came to pick up Fallon.
You say that you knew this babysitter, this friend, for 5 years, right?
Yes.
It wasn't like it was just some random person that you met. You knew this person for 5 years.
Yes, Dr. Phil, we were pretty close friends for 5 years. We would hang out with the baby sometimes. You know, I never had any reason to not trust her.
On the morning of December 9th, 2020, Kristen dropped Fallon off at Christy's apartment, as usual. Fallon hugged her mother goodbye, her bright smile the last memory Kristen would have of her daughter, alive and well. Around 1:30 p.m., Christy texted Kristen, asking if Fallon could stay the night. Kristen agreed, thinking her daughter would enjoy her first sleepover with her best friend. When Kristen got off work, around 4:30 p.m., she tried calling Christy but got no answer. A text from Christy explained they were at the park and her phone was about to die. As the evening wore on, Kristen's attempts to reach Christy became more frequent, with calls going straight to voicemail. Despite a growing sense of unease, Kristen tried to reassure herself everything was fine.
I was a little annoyed that she had let her phone die, but Kirsty was a trusted friend and I didn't have any reason to worry. I tried to call and text Kirsty several times and calls were going straight to voicemail.
Imagine living with this memory.
My gut was just telling me something just wasn't right.
And then around 9:20, I get a phone call from Kirsty and she's hysterically crying, telling me that I need to come to her house.
In the days following Fallon's death, as Kristen and Cameron grappled with their shock and grief, police launched an investigation into what really happened to the little girl. The autopsy results were shocking and heartbreaking. Fallon had suffered not just a skull fracture, but also lacerations to her liver, spleen, and colon. The medical examiner ruled her death a homicide. Investigators obtained search warrants for Christy's apartment and cell phone. On the day of Fallon's death, Christy had conducted these sickening Google searches. What type of people enjoy abusing other people's children? I hit my child and feel guilty. These searches were conducted in the morning, hours before Christy asked if Fallon could spend the night. This was the utmost evil act. Christy had planned it all. Further investigation revealed that Christy had a troubled past that Kristen had been unaware of. Between the ages of 18 and 21, Christy had been arrested 5 times on charges including battery, underage alcohol possession, and related offenses. Most recently, she had been served with an eviction notice for non-payment of rent and was running an unlicensed daycare out of her apartment. Both Christy Flood and Jeffrey Myers were brought in for questioning. The interrogation footage later released to the public showed the chilling demeanor of a woman trying to cover up a horrific crime.
She's okay.
I mean, she's not doing okay, but she's still at the hospital.
She's okay.
Like I said, well, she's not doing good.
But she couldn't be okay.
I don't know.
She still have a heartbeat.
Heart's still beating.
God.
heart's still beating.
God has a plan then.
In her initial interview, Christy stuck to her story about Fallon falling at the park. She described how she tried to shock Fallon awake by putting her in a cold bath when she became unresponsive. As detectives pressed her on the inconsistencies in her story and confronted her with the autopsy results, Christy's demeanor shifted from concerned caregiver to defensive suspect.
Come on, man. Don't do this to me. Don't ruin my life.
I'm not ruining your life.
No, you're on the cusp.
When presented with evidence of her Google searches, Christy attempted to deflect, even trying to cast suspicion on Fallon's stepfather, Cameron. She claimed that she had closed her bedroom door for an hour that day, leaving Fallon and Harper unsupervised.
But I don't know how her mom does it at their house. If they don't feed, I don't get it. I don't get if they just give him candy and chips, but so I try to get him, and then that's when I went to the back, I guess.
Jeffrey Myers, in his interrogation, initially claimed he had been at work all day and only returned home to find Fallon unresponsive.
Sir, I'm not just trying to stick up for my fiance because it's my girl and my baby and my mother or anything like that. This girl does not lay her hands on these children.
However, as detectives dug deeper, his story began to unravel as well. It was revealed that he had been present in the apartment and had witnessed at least some of the abuse inflicted on Fallon. On December 11th, 2020, just 2 days after Fallon's death, Christy Flood was arrested and charged with multiple counts, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, and cruelty to children. Jeffrey Myers was initially arrested on probation violation stemming from prior drug possession charges. On January 27, 2021, he too was charged in connection with Fallon's death. Prosecutors alleged that while he may not have physically harmed Fallon, he was present during the abuse. In a shocking twist, Christy's mother, Karen Flood, was also arrested in June 2021. She was charged with influencing a witness as investigators discovered she had been coaching her granddaughter, Harper, not to say anything negative to Christy about the authorities. Honestly, how disgusting can this family get? In the wake of this unimaginable tragedy, Kristen and Cameron have struggled to piece their lives back together. They appeared on the Dr. Phil show to share Fallon's story and raise awareness about the importance of thoroughly vetting caregivers, even those considered friends.
When I go back on it, I wish that we'd got her. And I wonder if we had gotten to her sooner, if something could have been done to save her life.
A GoFundMe campaign started by Kristen's colleagues at Fur Kids Animal Rescue raised over $60,000 to cover Fallon's funeral expenses and support the grieving family. The campaign read, "Fallon was a beautiful little girl with her whole life ahead of her. She was only 2 years old. It is so hard to make sense of her cruel, tragic, and untimely loss. Our hearts are broken for Kristen and her family, and we grieve with her right now. Kristen works so hard every day saving the lives of the most at-risk animals in our community. She, of all people, does not deserve to experience this tragedy." In a bittersweet twist of fate, almost exactly 1 year after losing Fallon, Kristen and Cameron welcomed a baby boy named Asher. But 4 weeks early, on December 18th, 2021, Asher arrived on the anniversary of Fallon's funeral. Kristen believes he was a gift from Fallon, a ray of hope in their darkest time. Today, Kristen maintains the Justice for Fallon Facebook page, which has over 7,000 followers. Through this platform, she keeps Fallon's memory alive and advocates for child abuse prevention. She often speaks about how Fallon now visits her in the form of ladybugs, finding comfort in those small reminders of her daughter's presence. After several days, Christy and Jeffrey's trial reached a conclusion in March 2024. Christy Flood and Jeffrey Myers on Monday both pleaded guilty for their roles in the 2020 death of 2-year-old Fallon Fridley. Flood pleaded guilty to first-degree murder while Myers entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder. A judge sentenced Flood to life in prison and Myers to 15 years. This whole case is made more tragic and more sickening by the fact that Kristen trusted these two monsters with her and Fallon's lives. Fallon's tragic story thus becomes a lesson for other young families. We need to thoroughly vet anyone who cares for our children, even those we consider friends. While we often teach our children about stranger danger, the sad reality is that children are statistically more likely to be harmed by someone they know and trust. It may seem excessive, I know, but after a story like Fallon's, we have to remember that even people we've known for years can harbor dark secrets or struggle with issues that may put our children at risk. The impact of child abuse can be devastating and long-lasting. Victims may experience a slew of psychological and emotional issues, including depression, anxiety, PTSD, difficulty forming healthy relationships, and increased risk of substance abuse. Early intervention and trauma-focused therapy can help mitigate these effects, but prevention is always the ideal scenario. However, as Kristen told Dr. Phil, sometimes even all of these precautions are not enough. Perhaps they didn't take Christy through all of this vetting, but they knew her as a friend. And scarily enough, nothing seemed off.
You know, this is something we do daily, is go back and back. What did I miss? What did I not see? And at the end of the day, truly, there was not any red flags, and I think that's the scariest part.
The prevalence of child abuse is a sobering reality. According to national statistics, millions of children experience abuse or neglect each year. The majority of perpetrators are parents or other relatives. That's how important it is to be vigilant. If you suspect a child is being abused, it's vital to report it, even if you're not entirely certain. In most areas, reports can be made anonymously to Child Protective Services or law enforcement. It's always better to err on the side of caution and let professionals investigate rather than ignore potential signs of abuse. Kristen now says that if she knew that fateful December day would be the last day she saw her daughter, she would have hugged her tighter. She also spends a lot of time thinking about the past and all the things she might have missed. But every now and then she remembers that that's not the wisest course of action. She should not blame herself for Fallon's tragic death. She trusted a monster who aptly hid her darkest side until the very last moment. The arrival of baby Asher has brought a measure of joy back into Kristen and Cameron's lives, though they are quick to emphasize that he doesn't replace Fallon. Instead, they see him as a gift from his big sister in heaven, a reminder that life and love can persist. While Fallon's story is undeniably heartbreaking, it is important to remember that healing is possible for survivors of abuse and their families. For grieving parents like Kristen and Cameron, finding ways to honor their child's memory and create meaning from tragedy can be an important part of the healing process. Fallon's case has sparked important conversations about child safety and the need for vigilance. It serves as a stark reminder that we can never be too careful when it comes to protecting our children. By sharing Fallon's story, Kristen and Cameron hope to prevent other families from experiencing similar heartbreak. As we reflect on Fallon's tragic case, let it serve as a call to action. We must all play a role in creating a safer world for children. And it means fostering a culture where the safety and well-being of children is everyone's responsibility. Fallon Friedlay's life was cut tragically short, but her legacy lives on through the awareness her story has raised and the lives it may save. May we honor her memory by redoubling our efforts to protect the most vulnerable among us, ensuring that no other child suffers a similar fate. In doing so, we can hope to create a world where every child has the chance to grow up safe, healthy, and loved. The world Fallon deserved, but was denied. Thanks for watching, you guys. Today, I'll ask you to leave a thoughtful comment for Fallon's family. They're still struggling to move past this recent tragedy, and they need all the virtual hugs right now. Let me know what other cases you'd like me to cover, and before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. All right, see you soon. Take care.